There we go. Had a little technical glitch there. There's a special setting on the camera that I need to push to make sure any words that I show you during our broadcast are correct and not backwards. So again, welcome to Santa's studio. Do you like Rudolph? Rudolph is resting. Just a few more days, and we'll come to visit all of the believers around the world. It's going to be a long journey, and so the reindeer are resting. Welcome to you. This will be our last broadcast before Christmas arrives. Things here at the North Pole, they're getting crazy busy, so very, very active. Everyone has a special energy. During this last week of preparations, before we take our worldwide journey around the entire globe to visit children and adults who believe in Santa. Mrs. Claus is busy with elves in the bakery, preparing food, because the elves are very busy in the workshop and in planning Santa's flight around the globe. It's a wonderful week. Our busiest week here at the North Pole. It's an amazing, energetic time. And so, welcome to Santa's studio. The elves are especially busy loading bags. The big, giant bags that Santa puts on his sleigh. And so all of the toy making and gift making is done. And so we're getting ready to load the bags. Yes, load the bags. As I said earlier, the reindeer are resting because they have a long journey ahead of them. Yes, they do. Today, we have several birthdays. Children and their parents have written in. We have Andrew, who is 5. Happy birthday to you, Andrew, from Santa. Mick is 7. That's a good age, I'll tell you. You're about to go into 3rd grade, I think. Hi, Mick, and happy birthday to you. Heather is 10. That's a wonderful age. Hello, Heather. Happy birthday to you. Melody is 12. Happy birthday, Melody. Lisa is 13. Hi, Lisa. It's good to see you. Happy birthday to you as well. Mark is 9. Hello, Mark. Happy birthday to you. And you may remember a little girl named Anja. She was in one of our stories many months ago. In fact, she may have been in our very first broadcast. Anja's folks wrote to Santa, as did Anja. She's the little girl whose only wish was to go see Santa at the North Pole. And she helped people before she left. She helped her parents do the chores. She helped her grandma next door. And then she embarked on a journey to go see Santa. And I had a nice visit with Anja. And Anja is 10 years old today. Happy birthday to you, Anja, from Santa here at the North Pole. It's going to be a wonderful week of excitement and energy. Yes, it is. There we go. Is that a little bit better? Today's broadcast will include 2 special books that Santa will read, if we have time. Santa's Tale. But first I'd like to answer 2 questions that I've answered before, but it's questions that I've received again this week because, well, I think children are just wondering. The first question that's at the top of everyone's list, especially now that it's just a few days until Santa arrives. What is your favorite cookie, Santa? Is there a certain cookie that you want me to put out with the milk? I've always said that the favorite cookie of Santa is whichever cookie you put out. Any cookie you put out, I will love it. Chocolate chip, graham crackers, Oreos, sugar cookie, gingerbread cookie. It makes no difference to Santa. Santa loves all loves all of the cookies. And so put out whichever cookie you like. I don't think Santa will be able to eat all of the cookies you leave, and so you have to be able to enjoy them as well. The second question that children are asking right now is, Santa, I don't have a chimney. How will you be able to come into my house and deliver presents if I don't have a chimney? Well, I don't know. Can you see my bells? Santa wears these bells right here on his wrist. Do you see? And I carry those bells with me everywhere to help the reindeer and to let people know that I'm coming. But on these bells, can you see? That's a key that says Santa. And that key allows me to come into the homes that don't have a chimney. It's Santa's magic key. Now, I visited with the child just a few days ago, and as we were visiting, he ran to his bedroom and he brought his own special key, his own magic key. And he puts that by the front door on Christmas Eve. And Santa can use that magic key to get into his home to make sure I deliver his presents. So even if you don't have a chimney, Santa will be able to get into your home using either your magic key or Santa's magic key. And so, if you don't have a magic key and you don't have a chimney, all you have to do is know that Santa will come and visit you. Favorite cookie? Whichever you leave, Santa will still be able to visit you and come into your home using my magic key. So don't worry about that, okay? Wonderful. Today's Santa Tale. And Santa Tale started because all of you said, I love the stories that you read to us, Santa. I think last week we read the story about tamales. But do you have any of your own stories from visiting with people? And today's story is from Becca. I was at a festival. It was actually a tamale festival where that tradition of making tamales for the entire community was happening that night. And a little girl came up to me. This was 3 years ago, I think. She came up and she was 8 years old, and she said, Santa, this is my mommy. I only have one wish, and that is for you to bring my daddy back home. Her parents, I guess, weren't getting along, and they had separated. They weren't living together anymore. And so Becca wasn't seeing her father very often, and the parents had always been fighting, as they sometimes do. They disagree and they argue. And that's never the fault of the child. It's just that sometimes grown-ups just don't know how to get along and show love. All of you show Santa lots of love. Becca wanted her daddy to return. That was 3 years ago. And the next year, Becca came to see Santa again. And she introduced me to her mother again. And then out from behind Becca and her mommy, she said, Santa, I'd like you to meet my father. And she introduced me to her daddy. And that was a wonderful, wonderful moment that her daddy had returned. And as Mommy and Becca left from visiting with Santa, I held out my hand and I spoke quietly to the daddy and reminded him that he had brought Becca into the world in love, and that it was his job to stay with the mother and Becca for his entire life, to raise her and take care of her and do what a good daddy does. I think he was surprised that Santa was so blunt and honest with him. But sometimes we need someone to be truthful with us, don't we? Yes. That is Becca's Santa tale for the day. If you're going through a similar situation where your parents are arguing all the time and they just don't seem to love each other anymore, know one thing, that when your parents disagree and they seem to argue a lot, it is not your fault, children. That is never your fault. You just continue to be the special child that you are. Because adults sometimes don't do very smart things, and they can be mean to each other. I'm going to read 2 short stories. Are you ready? The first story is very, very famous. It's called The Night Before Christmas. And I saved this story for this broadcast because this is kind of our night before Christmas, isn't it? I won't be broadcasting to you the night before Christmas on the 24th because Santa will be busy with all of his elves loading the sleigh and getting ready to come and visit you. This is a tale that is old and famous. It was 'twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama, in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled into our own bed for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter that I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. And away to the window I flew like a flash. I tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. Have you ever gone to the window to see what the noise outside was all about? The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment that it must be Saint Nick. That's another name that I have for Santa. Kris Kringle is another one. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and he shouted, and he called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen. On Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. Do you see them flying? As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, they mount up into the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkle, I heard on the roof the prancing, the pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, oh, how they twinkled. His dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. Do you know why Santa has such a big belly? It's because of all those cookies he eats that you leave for him. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know that I had nothing to dread. There they have the encounter. Now you cannot do this. You cannot stay up to try to catch Santa Claus, or Santa won't come. So make sure that you're snug in your beds and sleeping so that I can come and visit. Santa spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all of the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger on the side of his nose and giving a nod up the chimney, he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team of reindeer he gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down on a thistle. See him? There they go. But I heard him exclaim as he drove into the night, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." A very famous story, "Twas the Night Before Christmas." I hope you enjoyed that. Would you like to hear one more? It's a famous story too, but it's not as old as The Night Before Christmas. This story is called The Polar Express. This book, just like 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, it was turned into a movie. And so you can probably not only get the book, but you can also watch the movie. This is a wonderful story. Do you see what's on the cover? A big bell. See that bell? Would you like to see it in real? There's the magic bell of Christmas. This is about a bunch of children who go to the North Pole to see Santa. The Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a special sound, a sound that a friend had told me that I would never hear again. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hiss, hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. The train. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest. Then he looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and I put on my robe, and I tiptoed down the stairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me aboard. Now it's a very tiny, let's go over here. See, there's the train, and way in the back there, do you see the little boy? He's about to get on the train. On board the train were other children. It was filled, all in their pajamas and their nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols, and we ate candies with nougat centers. We drank hot cocoa that was as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward toward the North Pole. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests, where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. Do you see the train in the distance here? And there are the wolves. Yes, they're the wolves. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster, we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. Now, you have to look closely. Can you see way, way up at the top of the mountain? There's the Polar Express climbing the mountains. It must have a strong engine, huh? The mountains turned into hills. Then the hills turned into snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." You see? Way in the distance. The factories that make all of the gifts for Christmas. We pulled into the North Pole. It was a huge city. You see it? It was a huge city, alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. They're gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look! Thousands of elves were down below. Outside we saw the elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped. Look at all those elves. And the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were very excited. They pranced and they paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa appeared. That's me. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointing to me, he said, "Let's have that little fellow there." He jumped up into his sleigh. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now what would you like for Christmas?" Do you see Santa? Well, I knew that I could have any gift I could possibly imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and he told me, "Wait. The elf will cut a bell from a reindeer's harness just for you." The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above his head and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." There it is. A clock struck midnight. As the elves roared their approval, Santa handed me the bell, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh as Santa shouted out to the reindeer their names, and he cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above all of us, and then he disappeared into the cold, dark, polar air. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, ready to be taken home, the other children around me asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said, but the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. and we were on our way home. You see, he's kind of sad, isn't he? He lost the first gift of Christmas. Well, it broke my heart to lose that bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and I waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I shouted out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. But the Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. See, there he is, waving goodbye to the Polar Express, having lost the bell. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last package behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "I found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, oh my. Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard the sound of the bell. At one time, most of my friends, as I grew up, could hear the bell. But as years passed on, the bell fell silent for them as well. Even my sister Sarah, one Christmas, that she could no longer hear its sweet sound, she had stopped hearing the bell. Now, though I've grown very, very old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who believe. If you believe in Santa, I hope that you will continue to hear the magic sound of the bell. The Polar Express. What a wonderful story about believing in magic and believing in Santa. I hope you enjoyed the Polar Express. As we leave this last time before Santa travels around the world on Christmas, I would invite you to go to YouTube. And Santa has a channel on YouTube, Santa Jeff Claus. And it's on Santa's channel that you can watch these broadcasts once again whenever you want to. And you can watch some of the stories that Santa has been reading. Santa Reads. Enjoy those stories and enjoy the broadcasts. Gather your family around to watch them. Enjoy watching the broadcasts of the stories that Santa reads. I have about 15 or 20 books, I think, that I've read, And those are right there. YouTube channel Santa Jeff Claus. And now I will come to visit in just a few days. And before I depart to go check on the elves and the packing of the big bags with all of the gifts, remember to be kind. Remember to be helpful. If you are not agreeing with your siblings, your brother or your sister, please stop the fighting. Take care of each other. As I told a little boy just yesterday, you will have that brother and that sister for the entire rest of your life, as your parents as well. So love them, take care of them, just as Santa loves you. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. I'll see you in a few days. Farewell for now.